Meeting to order. We have the prayer and the pledge by Mayor Pro Tem Dan Dahl.
Father, we thank you for this opportunity to gather today. May everything we do begin with your inspiration and continue with your help. We ask you your guidance throughout this meeting and through all the thoughts and actions will reflect you in your holy will, and that you would grant us the grace to love you and your neighbors more perfectly. We pray this through Jesus Christ, in my name.
Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mayor Pro Tem Dan Doyle,
here.
Councilmember Natalie Lopez, Councilmember Marlon Lewis,
Here.
Councilmember David Broussard,
Here.
Councilmember Deidre Ledbetter,
Here.
Councilmember Sherry Guidry,
Present.
Councilmember Dustin Sawyer.
Here.
Thank you. Our first item is public comment. Do we have any comment cards? Is there anyone that can speak on any item? Okay, no, hearing none, we'll move on to item 2. Madam Clerk?
Acceptance of the minutes of the May 21st, 2019 meeting as published on May 30th, 2019.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Lewis. Do I have a second? Councilman Broussard. Thank you. Is there any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, please vote your machines. Thank y'all. Persons to address the council? We have none this evening. We'll move on to item 4.
Resolutions. A. Resolution authorizing the designation of the Daily Iberian as the official journal for the City of New Iberia for the annual period beginning June 2019 until notification of any change pursuant to Louisiana Revised Statute 43:150.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion. Councilman Lewis. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Councilwoman Lopez. Any discussion? Do we want to add that this only is in effect as long as Corey's here?
Absolutely.
Corey should get an award though.
That's it.
He's been our longest running.
That's it. Any real discussion? Hearing none, please vote your machines. Thank y'all. Item 4B.
Resolution accepting the bid and awarding the contract to Southern Constructors LLC in the amount of $1,630,338 for the project entitled Jefferson Terrace Drainage Improvements Project, and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract documents in connection therewith.
Do I have a motion?
I so move.
So moved by Councilwoman Ledbetter. Do I have a second?
Second.
Give this one to Councilwoman Guidry. Do we have any discussion?
Mayor, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Now, is that the only contract that it bid? Because didn't we have we accepted bid and had to turn it down? Is that the same project?
Yes.
Right.
Well,
Yes.
yes.
It's the same project.
Because it just says,
Right, Jeff? This is Southern Contractors, Jefferson Terrace.
That was the only,
Right.
yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
But you remember prior, we were having
Yeah.
some issues?
We had a bid
Durand.
from Matt Durand
Right.
many, many months ago. That didn't work out, and then we ended up going out for rebid. And this is the rebid number.
But when we rebid the contract, project,
Only one.
did we have some
We-
changes?
We had some changes in the
Yeah.
project because you have to change the scope before you rebid.
Right.
We made some changes. We worked it out with the railroad because we had some issues with the railroad. And then we rebid the project. This is the only bidder, but he is within the budget.
No, that's good. I was just,
Yeah.
I thought it was the same project. That's all I was asking.
Gotcha.
Last meeting, we had something else involving the same company.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
That was the T-by-U.
but a different project.
Right. Yeah. Thank you.
Sure.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
When is it actually gonna start? When can we expect a start?
Once you give me the approval, I'll sign the contracts. I'll get the contracts back, and then he'll order his bond. He'll order. He has, some insurance certificates he's got to give us. And then he'll get a notice to proceed from the project engineer. I would say that he'll probably get that notice within a month. We also still have a permit that is hanging out with the railroad, and they don't move very fast. But we will get him signed up and ready to go, and the notice to proceed as quick as I can, because if you remember, we inherited this project. We've had to make some changes, but we inherited this project, so this has been 2.5 years we've been trying to get this going. So believe me, as fast as we can.
And what kind of inconvenience can people who travel that route expect?
There'll be some lane blockages. We have to go under the railroad track. There'll be some issues there because we have to bring in some big equipment and dig a bore pit and do some things there. So I would say, I mean, I don't have a crystal ball, but I would say on St. Peter Street you can expect some lane closures. And on Jefferson Terrace, as the project's going through, you'll be down to one lane and, and have some areas that it might even be blocked off. But for the most part, I think it'll be one lane.
On each side or just one, it's on one side of the street? Or is it on both sides? It's on one side.
They have some work to do on each side, but they'll take it one side at a time. I mean, we'll manage that. We have to keep Jefferson Terrace open.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
and this is a drainage project.
Drainage project.
To
This is,
alleviate some of that flooding that's happening.
we
on
are
Jefferson
trying.
Terrace.
This will help the lower
Business
end of
area.
Jefferson Terrace, and then we'll send this water to the bayou. And then we do have a future phase. I am glad that we broke it. Originally it was one big project, and this project has come in and been, one, more trouble. It's well worth it. And number two, more costly than we had thought. So we're going to do this project. We're going to see the benefit. And then once we see the benefit, then we're going to come back to do phase two. But there is another phase that would take care of, the rest of Jefferson Terrace. And it's greatly needed.
Yes.
But it's been a little more complicated. The railroad, I mean, they're working with us, but it has been more complicated than to get us going. It has been some complications.
It's nice to see a
Yes, sir.
local company. We've been having other companies from Zach Mizzou all over the state, other states come in. It's very nice to see a local company.
It
come help us
is,
out.
and you love to see those dollars turn over in your community. But on the flip side, we're a public body. We have to publicly bid and follow the rules, and you don't know who you're going to get. I mean, that's part of it. But it is an added benefit that money will stay, in our local economy. Further discussions? Hearing none, please vote your machines. Great, thank you. Madam Clerk, 4C.
Resolution approving the certificate of substantial completion submitted by B. Yard Construction Company Incorporated for completion of the project described as City Hall roof replacement and recording of the certificate with the Iberia Parish Clerk of Court.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Swear and a second by Councilman Lewis. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, please vote your machines. Thank y'all very much. Now we go to 4D.
Resolution approving the certificate of substantial completion submitted by B. Yard Construction Company Incorporated for completion of the project described as Week Street Fire Station roof replacement and recording of the certificate with the Iberia Parish Clerk of Court.
I need a motion.
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Broussard, a second by Councilman Swear. Any discussion on this side? Seeing, hearing none, please vote your machines. Thank y'all. 2 projects complete, done, no problem, and a whole bunch of them to go.
On the budget.
And within the budget. Now we move to item 5, Madam Clerk.
Introduction of budget amendment, introduction of special ordinance to be set for public hearing on June 18, 2019. Introduction of budget amendment number 2018-2019-11, amending the ordinance levying certain taxes, appropriating the funds necessary to defray the expenses and liabilities of the city of New Iberia for the year 2018-2019, to amend the budget for communication department equipment purchase.
Do I have a motion?
Second.
Councilwoman Guidry and Councilwoman Ledbetter. And I'm going to call up our police chief and our fire chief so that they can give us the merits of this project.
All right,
Gentlemen.
sir. Not like we didn't talk earlier. The mayor and I and the fire chief met with Motorola today to kind of finalize the information to be able to move our communications department into our building. This does several things, whereas, kind of when we started this big project of a whole police department, one of the things that we had consolidated in a sense was continuing with the 911 office and dispatching out of the center through the parish government office. We want to pull the last phase of our department all into one, which is our communications officers, the call takers, the dispatchers, and be able to self-sustain to where our department is all functional within itself. This is the last phase of that. The budget amendment would allow us to purchase the consoles. What these consoles do is that is what the call takers, when they take information in, all the radio frequencies, all the dispatching equipment goes out through these consoles, and we're able to dispatch police service and fire service. So no longer, because for a long period of time, the fire chief has been, his fire department has been dispatched by 911. So we would be able to dispatch our own. All city services would go through our dispatch. That basically we basically have control over our own department basically at this point. Now, a couple of luxuries with this is that our dispatchers will be able to utilize equipment that we will own. In other words, right now we're renting console space from 911. They've been very gracious with us and very accommodating, but we're renting that space, and if we continue along this road, we will rent forever. At this point, we will own our own equipment. We own our own consoles. So in the matter of time to pay off these consoles, we will own it. And it is upkept through the LWIN system. The LWIN system is a state console that is tied in directly to Baton Rouge. This was another project that we did to accomplish this one by putting the LWIN system on our tower right there in the parking lot. That tower now houses an LWIN's antenna. All the repeaters and stuff that our police agencies talk on and have shared frequencies with state police and other agencies is all housed in our tower right outside our building. Well, this LWIN system through our dispatch consoles will also tie into that and talk directly with Baton Rouge. So it makes it streamlined. So it accomplishes a lot. One, we're tied in directly to the state system. And the second part of that is that we will own our own equipment. We're no longer paying rent space for whatever X amount of years and whatever that might be in the future. So we control our own destiny and be able to control any expenses that incur through that, because we're still going to have our own dispatchers either way. Now we own the equipment and we move them into our building. So I'm open for any. I know the mayor's been with me and the fire chief has been every step, and I can't say enough about the support we're getting from the fire department. So it's been kind of every step of the way. Yeah. Every step of the way, the mayor's been there, and I think we've been able to ask the last few questions we needed to ask of Motorola to make sure that we're getting a system that will do everything it needs to be doing.
Explain CAD to car.
And
That's
then,
another benefit.
well, the second half of that is what it does for our police officers. Right now, the 911 system, we're kind of at their consoles, and they utilize a CAD system called Caliber, from a company called Caliber. Well, our RMS system is through a whole different company, ADSI, because Caliber was not cost efficient for our department. And it didn't do some of the things we needed it to do on RMS, on a reporting system side. So there is limited, we can't talk to our dispatchers through computers, basically, and dispatchers can't talk to our cars. Well, with us being sustained on our own consoles that we control, our ADSI system now evolves to a full CAD system, which is computer-aided dispatching. What that does is if a dispatcher sends a call out, as they're taking a call on a telephone, they're typing this information into the CAD system. Well, those cars are seeing it live. So it's real time. So that communication, it eliminates a lot of radio traffic, where the radios might be tied up with other officers calling in other information. This frees it up to where it's on the screen inside the car. So it makes it live. And and plus it extracts all the information that the dispatcher is typing in directly into our reporting system. It's all one system. It's fully integrated. And again, for the fire department, our consoles will be able to dispatch fire just as 911 does. It's the exact same modules. It's all tied into the same system.
Question? Question?
So when someone calls City Hall right now, they call in the office, police department, non-emergency.
Yes.
Emergency, they call 911.
Yes.
Right? So with this system, they still do the same thing?
Yes, 911 still has their own call takers. As y'all aware, 911 is going to be building a new facility out at the base. So if we had stayed also into a contract there, our dispatchers would have been
So the 911 building, as we call it now, will be empty completely?
No, CID will remain over there, and then my plan is to rent the other half of the building. I would like to see us have some income. I will tell you that many agencies in this building have already started, some more diplomatically than others, to get that space. But I really feel for now, you know, in the future maybe, but for now, I would like to see us rent that space.
Almost got him on that one, that's okay.
Any further questions or discussion? Yes, ma'am.
I just have a comment. When I went to the roast for the mayor, that was what, 2 months ago, approximately. I was actually able to meet. I randomly met the head of the dispatch department
Yes.
for our city police, and another girl who worked in that department. And I just want to say, like, from my opinion, I was just very, very impressed. They are about my age, but having worked in the criminal system in this city, in the parish for as long as I did, it's like you really have to love what you do to do those types of jobs. To have to handle those, come to work and handle those type of situations every day and talk people through those type of situations and have the demeanor to kind of roll with the punches and make these people feel consoled while getting the things across that you need to get across to handle the business. And I just want to say I was just very impressed.
I can tell you this, I'm gonna brag a little bit because those dispatchers do a really, really tough job. You gotta understand that they're taking people's worst days on those phone calls and trying to get the officers to not be blinded going into whatever call that might be, because understand that dispatcher's not seeing what somebody's describing to them of what's going on in whatever event they have in their home or around their home or whatever that might be. And they're trying to get enough information to get an understanding so they can give an understanding to the officers and send them to that spot to deal with that issue. And they do a phenomenal job. I tell you that we got a good group. Lyrical does a great job of supervising that group, and really proud of the dispatchers we have in our building. Really good.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, man.
Yes, sir.
Chief, I gotta be honest with you, and I'm gonna throw a monkey wrench in. I get a lot of complaints about how 911 responds to some of the calls that people, when they call 911, it's almost like they treat the callers as if they're criminals. I've dealt with them already as well, and that's what we're talking about, 911, right?
Now, just so you know, we're separate from 911 call takers.
Okay,
Call
Right.
takers are parish government employees.
okay,
They're not ours.
okay, all right. Well, I still got a chance to say that. I still got a chance to say that. I mean, come on, man. What they got
No,
on?
yeah.
What kind of gun? Was it a loud gun? Or hold on. You know. So pass that on to them from us.
We got it.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Fire.
The only thing the fire chief says. Councilwoman
Well,
Liddell.
about 911, you said 911 wouldn't change. We would still, in an emergency, call 911, and it would be dispatched through our dispatchers?
Well, the way it works is that the 911 call, when a 911 call taker, as their description is, 911 phone call rings in, they answer 911, what is your emergency? I think everybody knows that symbol there. That's when they're going to extract what type of emergency that they're dealing with. And then what is the appropriate agency to send it to deal with that issue. So the 911 dispatcher has to decipher what type of call and where is it located. Is it the city of New Iberia? Is it Jeanerette? Is it Lowerville? Is it the parish? So they have to distinguish that to be able to send it to the proper agency. They try to do that within a timely manner because you don't want to let an emergency call extend too long without getting it to a dispatching agency. We're the dispatching agency.
Okay.
Now, we sit in the same room, but we're still in different consoles. So as they're getting the call, they're extracting that information, and then that call will be forwarded to us, where we then, sad to say, we retake the same information because we're not on the same phone line, And then we would get that information and send appropriate services to that.
But those functions won't change. In other words,
That
it's
function will not
exactly the
change.
function we have now, just so
Yeah,
people
it
don't
just basically, we just,
become panicked that something's different.
Yeah.
It's the same function.
yes.
Good job.
Further discussion?
I can't say too many things, more nice things about the fire department, so.
I'll actually vote your machines. Good job, fellas. Thank you. Thank y'all very much. Now we move on to item 6. Madam Clerk.
Items for discussion. Discussion on U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development's correspondence and discussions with the City of New Iberia in connection with the New Iberia Housing Authority.
Do I have a motion? I don't,
No, it's a discussion.
it's just
No.
discussion. I don't need a motion. Thank you. I caught myself. Our city attorney asked if he could kind of open up the discussion. He and I have been involved in this for many months and taken many steps, so I'm going to turn it over to him.
Okay, you have some material that was in your packets with the agenda, and then I copied some other material, or probably just repeated material that I handed out, so you'll have that there too. I just want to explain to you what it is that the Housing Authority is and isn't. The Housing Authority is a public body formed under state law. The City of New Iberia, I think by ordinance, said we will have a housing authority. It's a body separate from city government, so it's not the mayor and council. Its finances are separate from city finances. It's got commissioners that are appointed by the mayor and council. Once you appoint the commissioners, then you don't supervise their work. This separate public body has its own property, and I think right now it's probably got 139 households or something that it houses in its properties. This thing has been going on since the 1950s. It's got commissioners and an executive director. And the city has not really been involved in day-to-day operations for some time. So that's kind of the background on what this thing is. The history of the Housing Authority is that it is regulated by the Department of Housing and Urban Development, which is a federal agency that we call HUD. And HUD regulates this Housing Authority of New Iberia. And the HUD office in New Orleans is the office that has jurisdiction over this agency here. And HUD regulations are tough, and they're thorough, and they cover everything this organization does. The organization also is dependent on HUD for financing, because this thing doesn't make a profit, so it needs HUD money to operate, to repair the facilities, to do things like that. So it lives in a world that's dominated by HUD, and it has to comply with all these HUD regulations. And for some time, there have been management issues with the Housing Authority in New Iberia that HUD has raised with them in various letters over the years. Some of these have to do with budgeting and with finances, with audits, with how things are managed, with how things are repaired. And the situation that we have now has kind of gotten pretty serious. The Housing Authority has, over the years, asked the city for cooperation in dealing with HUD issues. I know that past administrations have signed agreements with the HUD to assist with management issues. We were approached some time ago to sign a recovery agreement. This administration was, and that was in 2017. And the agreement was between the Housing Authority and HUD and the city, and it basically made the city responsible for making sure that the Housing Authority complied with HUD regulations. My advice was don't sign it, and we didn't. And I thought at the time that we were not responsible for the Housing Authority. We could assist in various ways, but we did not want to take on responsibility for something that we didn't control. And the Housing Authority is an independent public body. After that, correspondence took place. There have been various other letters, and now we're in a situation where the Housing Authority is got ongoing issues with HUD, and HUD has again asked the city to step in and help with these. Now, the city has limited things that it can do. The mayor has the right to remove the board members for failure to do their duty, And if the mayor gives notice to a board member that the board member is going to be removed, then the board member has recourse. The board member can ask for a hearing before the city council. So the city council is involved in removal of board members. The city council would be involved in replacement of board members because that's an appointment process. So the mayor would nominate and the city council would approve. So the city's not responsible for this thing. And I've said that over and over again, but the city does have a role in appointing and removing board members, so it does have some control over this. The HUD has talked about various options that would be alternatives. One possibility is that if the management issues could be addressed and HUD could be persuaded, it might be possible for the housing authority to continue to operate the way it does, or continue to operate the housing facilities. And that's a possibility. Another possibility that the HUD folks have thrown out is that the housing authority could bring in outside management, enter into an agreement with, say, Lafayette or some other agency that's larger, maybe more experienced, to manage the housing authority properties in New Iberia. So that's a possibility. That would be another issue that would be between the housing authority and HUD. We really wouldn't be part of that. It's possible for the housing authority facilities to be demolished eventually, but not used, and the housing authority, the folks who are served by the housing authority, be served by a Section 8 program somewhere else. Now, I think that the HUD folks were interested in having the city's Section 8 program absorb all these housing, all these folks. The issue is whether or not the city Section 8 program could handle that. And I think that the mayor talked to Brian about that possibility. Brian does an excellent job, HUD knows he does, with the city Section 8 program, but it doesn't look like that program could really be absorbed by the city program. That would be pretty difficult. So that's a possibility. It could be part of a parish or some other Section 8 program. That would mean that the housing authority would not operate the apartments that it has now, but Section 8 vouchers would be given, and those would be used to rent spaces from private owners. The HUD has, they have the power here to do what they need to do. They have the authority to shut this thing down. They have the authority to force this thing to go out of business if it were. The city's interest in this, and we have tried, I think, very hard to do two things. One is to not take responsibility for day-to-day operations. We didn't want to do that. And the other is to try as much as possible to get in the space between the housing authority and HUD and try to work on communication and management and changes and things like that. And you'll see there's a long list of things that we have listed here, the mayor's involvement in this issue since the beginning. So we have resisted taking charge of this, and but you know, it's getting to the point where the HUD people are running out of patience. And you'll see the correspondence. There's a letter dated November 7th, 2018 that shows you that these issues have gone on for some time, that this has been a substandard or troubled facility since 2011. There's a list that starts on page 3, a long list of things that HUD is complaining about the housing authority about, and it talks about things that need to be remedied before HUD will release money that the housing authority needs to make repairs. We have correspondence from the mayor to the housing authority in January. Then there's a recent letter from the housing authority to Mr. Fred Wesley, who's the chair of the Board of Commissioners, talking about a substantial default being an emergency and asking them to take some action within 90 days of that time. So the first thing we've done is we try to get involved in trying to solve this problem as much as we could. Even though it's not a city agency, you know, we do feel some responsibility. The second thing we're looking at is long-term, in the big picture, what the city wants out of this thing is housing for people. Because you got 139 households out there that depend on the housing authority for their housing, and there's not really a way that the city can take care of those folks. We would like the housing authority to function. It would be best for us if the housing authority could continue to operate, subject to HUD regulation with HUD money and all that, but to continue to do its job as it is now. I don't think that the city administration has an interest in getting in and replacing the board or determining who the leadership is going to be or calling the shots. But we really have limited authority to make a change here. But if we don't make a change, we really think that HUD is going to have the authority and they're going to have the intention to come shut this thing down. So that's kind of the background to this, and the reason we're here before the council is because we bring stuff to y'all. But you are going to be involved if the city has to step in. You're going to be involved in appointments and removals and things like that. And the people who are served by the housing authority are your constituents. And they're people that we care about and want to look out for. This housing authority has existed for many years. It's served a lot of people well for a long time. We would like to see it continue to go on. I think that HUD has a solution for housing authorities that don't function well, and that solution is to put them out of business and replace that with vouchers and privatize the housing that it provides to people of limited means who need low-income housing. So I think that if nothing changes, HUD's got a plan, and the plan would be that the housing authority as it exists today is not going to continue. Now, I don't know at this point what more could be done with between the housing authority and HUD. I think that the administration is open to any solutions that people have or any efforts that anybody would make. But I think that the message that we get from HUD loud and clear, and that message I think has been delivered to the housing authority also, is there has to be a change in leadership and a change in the way operations are done if the housing authority is going to continue. So I'm bringing this up because this is going to be a public issue, and I don't want the council, we don't want the council to be in the dark about this, and if it turns into a situation where apartments are being closed down, you need to know about it. There are quite a few apartments now that can't be rented because they're substandard, they're not repaired. The funds that they need to use to repair those are locked up in HUD procedures, and the housing authority's not done the things they need to do to get access to the money. So there are a lot of vacant units, there are a lot of substandard units. There's some correspondence that talks about safety issues at the housing authority. So, we don't have a lot of recourse here as the city. We don't have much authority. We can step in and replace the board, but that would be a pretty drastic thing that I don't think the mayor wants to do. And I think we've made it clear to the housing authority that we will cooperate in any way that we can, and we would like to see this worked out. We're not eager to step in, but in the end, we're probably going to have to do what we have to do to see that our people get the housing that they need, because that's what the city wants out of this is the housing to be available. I know, I don't know if we have any members of the commissioners who are here tonight for this item, or any members of the public who are here for this item. I don't know. But that's kind of the background of it, and I want y'all to know about that. But there's serious issues that need to be addressed if it's going to continue to be what it's been for the last 50, 60 years.
Thank you, Jeff. Any discussion on this? Questions, discussion? Yes, ma'am.
I just have one. One. Since we appoint the board, who hires the director? Who does the director answer to? How is that chain of command as far as responsibility, accountability, and hiring and termination?
The board hires a director, and that is the board's main function, is to see that the director handles their task and communicates with HUD and fills the paperwork out. And having been involved in many meetings, we even got meetings where it was almost like a settlement conference. We got HUD here, we got people from the board here, we got the director at the time, we got everybody in a room together and tried to get him to communicate. We got the attorney who had not been paid in months and months and months, thanks to Max, to come back and sit and give advice because he had a long history in association with. Very nice of him to do that. He came. I mean, we've had meeting after meeting trying to get the ball moving. But basically, the director works for the board. Yes, sir.
So-
Oh, wait, I guess
I'm
Natalie still,
sorry.
technically Natalie still has the floor.
Okay, has the board, I understand they're reaching out for assistance. Has the board or the director submitted any type of ideas or game plans to turn this thing around to the city in conjunction with asking for our help? Do they have any sort of plan?
I've had discussions with Reverend Sophus mostly. He's come to quite a few meetings, and we've had discussions about some ideas. I'm not positive what has transpired, in the last few weeks.
But like, have you heard any plan that shows any promise?
I have seen, basically it's the fourth quarter and we need a big play. There's no other way to put it. They need a playmaker and they need a big play. They realize that. Have they done it? I can't do it for them. In other words, we have floated around some ideas in some private meetings of what I think they need to do. Number one, they've got to communicate with HUD. They've got to get a flow of paperwork. All of those requests, be it for paying utility bills, be it for paying subcontractors who've worked on some of the units, all of that paperwork, HUD is a bureaucratic agency, and you have to play there. You can't change the rules. Some kind of way that communication has to flow, and they had 90 days to come up with a plan of action. At the end of 90 days, I was on one of the phone conferences, Jeff said, okay, if we don't move and fire the board and agree that we want to tear it down and move in that direction, what happens? HUD says it'll take a while, but then we'll get it in receivership, and we will end up over a longer course to tear it down. And what I can tell you is what has happened in other communities. I would use New Orleans as an example. The mayor fired the board, put another board in. That other board voted to tear the housing project down, and they proceeded with tearing the housing project down. I did not, I'll just be honest with you, I don't want to be part of that. In other words, we have good people on the board. I know most of them, they're really good citizens. They are people that, to me, will step up. But communication is the key. The other thing, there's $667,000 in an account to renovate the units that we need to renovate. HUD is now taking that money away 1/12 a month. So it's kind of the company store mentality that, in a year you don't have any money left. So there's money sitting there, but because the paperwork's not flowing, the communication's not there, things are not happening on the level of the way HUD
And why
operates.
is the paperwork not flowing? Wouldn't that be one of the primary responsibilities of the director?
Yes, it would be.
And the board controls the situation with the director.
The board, that is the main function of the board. Be like if I'm not doing my job. I mean, the main function, y'all are budgetary, and what you would do is you pull the reins away from me in a heartbeat. I mean, if we were not
And I'm just
a
asking
team,
for us to get a scope of how this,
that is how
whole-
that's their main, fiduciary responsibility.
So, yeah, okay. I'm good.
Okay.
That's enough for me.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I mean, and Jeff and I have been, and Maxine has been very involved, and we've been working on this for a good while. And when it began as we need to try to fix a troubled agency, and then it morphed into, oh well, I can't fix them, tear it down. And at that point, that's when I was willing to represent my citizens, and I was willing to try to step in and communicate and fix an issue. But I was not willing to say, oh, that's it. Okay, thank you. Do whatever you want. That's not me.
I have one last question.
Sure.
What are the qualifications to be the director of HUD?
I mean, I'm sure we could look those up, but I do not know those.
That to me, that is also important for me. I mean, because
I understand.
not just to be like negative, but to be an elected official, you basically just have to be 18 and live where you live, and
Right.
and look.
True.
Sometimes it
We-
works
we
out
all
okay,
did that.
Sometimes it is. Sometimes somebody gets elected and it's really scary.
I understand.
But so I am interested in that.
Okay.
Definitely. And
I can look it up and get it to you. We can find that out.
And where the board stands on their relationship with the director. To me, it's are they both asking for help? Are they asking for help together? Are their efforts combined? Are they concurrent with their ideas? I mean, you know,
I understand.
if you want, you know, help, it's like, if you want us to come 20, you got to be at 80, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand.
I'm just trying to wrap my head around it. I mean, of course, we don't want to see this system break apart.
Understand.
But if we want to see it, we want to see it operating at its best. I mean, that's what we're striving for in our reputation.
I agree.
Mayor.
Yes. Yeah.
So in this, housing authority, the director is a paid position, correct?
Correct.
But the, board members are not.
No, they're volunteers.
Okay. And you mentioned something about the parish has the same program as HUD, kind of, as a city
Parish
does?
has Section 8 like we do. Same thing that Brian does.
Right.
The parish has their own Section 8.
But they don't have a HUD program. Because we talked about the parish maybe going for help, and
That would be through the HUD program. See, one of the things
do they
that,
have a program, the parish?
they have a HUD program. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Same thing. They have a director. Same thing as Brian. Because one of the things HUD
But
did was
that's for something different.
that's for the parish.
Yeah,
Yes, Dan.
yeah.
I mean, Jeff.
There are two ways that they provide housing. One is
Section
there
8.
are local agencies that own apartments and rent them out.
Right,
The other is Section 8.
right.
Section 8, city and parish have.
Right.
And Section 8 is a voucher program where
Then you go to
qualifying
apply.
people
Right.
get vouchers for qualifying properties, but there's no publicly owned housing. So one of the alternatives, one of the things that was thrown out was, could the city's Section 8 absorb this? Could the parish's Section 8 absorb this? They were looking for alternatives that didn't involve the owned housing, you know, run locally by a housing authority. And I think the HUD people have called on the city to help a lot. And as the mayor has said, they started out with, help us encourage these people to address these management issues, and now the latest communication seemed to be, help us take control of this thing so we can do something with it. I'm not sure the housing authority has really come forward with a plan to us to do things, although I think Michael Presto, who is their attorney, who's good guy, knows what he's doing, no longer with him, I think. You know, he had a plan a while back. But I think, you know, what we can do is limited. And what we can do, we can only do if the board really fails. I mean, that's what it comes to.
But my concern is like Section 8, and anyone can own a house. It has to meet certain standards for them to be able to get these vouchers to go live in them.
Correct.
These HUD facilities is like little apartments or a complex that is built by somebody.
Or standalone houses.
Right. And why are they not responsible to make the upgrades to meet the criteria for these HUD people to be able to be able to live there? You're saying there's a lot of things to be improvements to be done on the structures.
Right.
But why the owner of the structures?
The housing authority owns the
Oh,
structure.
they own
Yeah.
the houses.
Yeah,
They own-
it's two separate programs. In
I
other
know
words-
they have some in town. I
Yeah,
was just
yeah.
wondering.
No, like a private individual buy a house
Right.
or build a little small apartment or buy 5 houses in a row and turn them into Section 8. Brian inspects
Right.
them. He makes sure they meet the criteria. There is a rent cap. There is a deposit. You know, there's a lot of things. There's the person that lives there has responsibility to keep the yard up, to keep an orderly place. Brian goes and inspects it. It is a lot for both the landowner and the tenant, you know, a lot of responsibility. It's not like, you know, our housing project runs more like an apartment complex. I mean, you know,
Right.
there's a maintenance man. You don't cut the grass if you live there. You don't put up, you know, a giant deposit like you do in private. But so that's two separate things. But HUD owns this housing authority.
Yeah, the housing authority.
They own the
in
property.
Iberia owns property that's got apartments on it.
Right.
Multifamily apartments, and that's their property. And you put your finger on the maintenance issues. They don't have, the properties are not being maintained, or some of them haven't been maintained like they should have. and some can't be rented, and they can't get the money from HUD to renovate the properties and fix what they need to fix, because they haven't done some things that HUD has required, and HUD is really making it more and more difficult for them to get by doing things the way they've been doing.
So it's not like they don't have the money to do it,
Well,
the paperwork's not being done to get the work.
They haven't done a financial statement in a couple of years and reconciled their books. So one of the biggest issues with HUD is that they haven't turned in a financial statement. So HUD is continuing to send money with no financial statement. That's one of the things that they tightened up on greatly. The other one was like for the flow of information to fill out to pay utilities. We had people call in here. I can't tell you how many months we had people call in here from the utility companies. The electrical company, the water company, look, I'm gonna have to turn them off. They're so many months late. So they would call here to see if they could collect the money, and I was like, that's not our housing, it's not our units, because that flow of paperwork wasn't happening. One of the big issues is there's some major electrical problems. They've been there for many years. That money that's sitting there was really set up to pay for the electrical issues. That hasn't been done. And as I said earlier, now HUD is telling me that's one of the more recent problems or notifications is that, well, we're going to take 1/12 of it away every month. So, if you don't solve your problem in short order, they basically have taken the money away for you to fix the major issue, which is the electrical. You
Wow.
finished that?
Oh, I got it, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I have my constituent here, Mr. Fred Wesley. Hi, Mr. Fred. I've received many calls from him throughout the year, here and there, and there was a scare tactic that many were facing some of the tenants concerning the light bill and the water bill, and some of the tenants were faced with power outage, which concerned me. I got a few calls from Mr. Wesley there. I'm not sure what the procedure is tonight, but I'd like Mr. Wesley, if he can, and any other board members that we have here, to maybe if they would like to, okay.
Let's follow the procedure.
Oh, I thought we were. Okay.
No, the right way to do it, because we had comment time at the beginning and nobody filled our card. So the right thing, I think, and I can
Oh,
ask
I'm
Jeff,
sorry.
I
That's
think
right.
you'd make a
Yes, sir.
motion to ask if he could come up, and we would vote to let him come up.
Yes, sir.
Is that kind of the right way to do it,
Yes,
Jeff?
Mayor. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay.
Any other questions before you start all that? No?
I have a question.
Okay, Jerry, I'll come back. I
Yeah,
really want to do this the right way.
yeah.
My question
So
is.
Jeff, what's the proper procedure? Finish questions and then call Mr. Wesley?
Well, I had a question, but that's fine.
Well,
That's fine.
is it a question of him or of? I think if the councilwoman has a question that we can deal with before we start asking people come up, then she ought to be able to finish asking her questions.
I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, Councilman Gibson, you have the floor.
My question is similar to Councilwoman Natalie, and that's what's the plan going forward since the $660-something thousand was being held up? What is a fundraising type plan, or what type of plan that's in place now? That's in case if it doesn't get paid, what's the next step on the financial side? That was my question.
And the city has no plan.
Right.
No,
Gotcha.
we know that.
Got that.
It's not our plan. Okay, well, procedurally, because I really want to get this right, do I go to Deidre and then we make a motion to call Mr. West? I just want to do it the right way. You tell me what to do. That's
Yeah, I think I would do the questions first and
Okay.
then.
great. Then I'll move on, come back to Councilwoman Guidry. Councilwoman Ledbetter.
My question is, I was reading a letter, and the letter said that reporting was a problem and filling out the paperwork, okay? It seemed that the director was trained to do that. It states here, there was some training done, and it still hasn't been done. So, what more can you do to help somebody to fill out the paperwork besides training, and unless you fill it out for them. You know, that's that person's job. It's the director's job to do that, and if they can't do that with all the training that was done, then that's a problem that the board definitely needs to deal with. And maybe you like that person, maybe that person is very good, you know, for certain things, and I understand that, but you are responsible for 139 people, you know, families that are living there that may be without housing because these things are not done. So it goes beyond really the director. You know, the board really needs to look at how it's going to affect the families if you don't do what you need to do, and you really have to do what you need to do.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm finished.
Thank you. Yes.
And I hear what Ms. Ledbetter saying. Looks like we have an oversight issue to a certain degree. I mean, I know this much: the federal government don't play. You know, I serve on a board right now that has some issues with the federal government, and they don't play. Let me call my cousin and see if he can help us. And I'm just being honest.
Yep.
I mean, the elephant in the room is the responsibility for the director's work falls on the board. So, and I heard someone ask what was our plan, and it was explained that we don't have a plan because we don't need to have a plan. And all we do, and then we don't do, just the mayor, if I perused through it over the weekend, the mayor is the only one who appoints them. So we really,
You approve them.
we approve them.
You vote on them. I can't
right.
do it without you.
We
Can't
understand.
Fire them without you, and I can't hire them without
We
you.
understand it, but there are some boards where we go get somebody from our district to serve in that seat. But mostly on this one is, you know, so
Yeah. We in this one together.
we kind of in a rock and a hard. You know, it's like a bad tooth in a very bad place, and the only way to stop the pain is to get to the root. You know, and the root of it is that the director hasn't been. I mean, it's on paper, it's public knowledge. I had a call about 2 months ago from a state legislator that asked me, did we know anything about it, and I didn't. And of course, I called you to find out, and his question was, why aren't y'all doing any oversight? And I know what oversight meant from sitting on boards. And I said, well, I've never got a letter or call or anything from the board. You know, so if we had any oversight, we wasn't aware of it or abreast to it. And now this, so, I mean, we trying to appease and I guess be nice, but all this, like I told the legislator, I said, man, I said, I don't want to say nothing about it. He said, well, if they got a letter, it's public record. He said, all a little bird has to do in here been request public record to know everything that's going on. And I mean, a blind man can see that the leadership hadn't been leading, you know. And I know it's an old building. It's like, I guess you're a builder, Dan, and you're a builder as well. I guess it's an old building. If you don't just keep it up, you will have issues. And I notice some people tear down houses after. They say, I'd rather tear it down. You know, some of your bigger developers in New York, they'll tear down a $5 million building to come up with a $15 million building, you know, and it's feasible. But when we're talking about losing 140 of our constituents and from what I've heard is that Section 8 probably won't be able to give them immediate assistance if they close this down. So we are trying to save the housing that is affordable right now for our constituents.
Or if they can,
And
it won't be in New Iberia.
it's tough. So we don't have a plan, but when I look at the list of infractions, if you will, something has to be done, and the question is by who? I'm gonna leave that set there for a little minute.
Okay.
Can't believe,
Mr. Broussard?
can't believe that each and every one of us work hard at doing our taxes, state and federal. I can't believe in 3 years they haven't filed a financial report. You know, why they can't keep up with it year to year. And we've seen some other cities have very much trouble when they figure it all out. When they get all the data out, where this and where that went. So that's the big monkey, that's the biggest elephant that we can talk about. Why 3 years, no finance report has been filed. You know, we all gotta follow rules and regulations. That's just my statement on this whole matter.
No.
I kind of have an idea, suggestion that I just kind of want to throw out. I personally don't have a development in my district, and I know for sure Councilwoman Guidry has some information, and I see her, you know, trying to get that across the table to us tonight. But I also think that this is obviously gonna be a big issue. It's gonna get more attention, I think, as the next couple months go by. And I wanted to suggest the idea of how sometimes when we have things that get a little in depth, that we do the committees. And I think maybe some of the council members that have these developments in their districts would be ideal, naturally, to maybe form a committee. And maybe meet with these board members and kind of see where things are going, because I can't imagine, you know, the stress of volunteering to be a board member and, you know, having the authority to remove the director. You know, it's not like that. Like, our planning and zoning committee cannot remove Jane, you know, and it's like, you got to think about what kind of weight that must be for them. And I think maybe having some communications with council members that are responsible for districts that hold these dwellings for these constituents that we so deeply care about, I think might be a good avenue, you know, to start with. Because, you know, I mean, who of us has a development?
Me, Sherry, and Ms. Ledbetter. You have if you do you on your own Bayard Street. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have the where the elderly stay.
And then we have
That's HUD.
and so what the most we can have on a committee,
Housing Authority.
Yeah, you
Housing
can't have more
Authority.
than 3 because it's.
it's a quorum. So
You can't
I
go
mean,
in 3.
what does everyone think about that idea? Because I understand Mr. Wesley's here tonight. I see Mr. Panadzon. And I know, you know, they have all the best intentions, but I just hate to put anyone on the spot publicly and them have to speak on behalf of themselves or their board members before, you know, y'all kind of have those discussions amongst yourselves to maybe get some more communication flowing, and then y'all can come back and kind of relay some information to Mr. Swear, Mr. Broussard, Mr. Dahl, and I, you know, and maybe we can get a better idea about it. And I personally, I know Mr. Lepresto very, very well, and I definitely intend on, you know, calling him and just kind of, you know, seeing what he has to say. The law office that I worked for, we shared space with him when I was younger, so I worked in his office. But I kind of think that this topic requires a little bit more in-depth investigation by the council, I think, before we put the public on the spot.
Okay, we got some more hands up. Thank you. Dustin, you go to Dustin first. Thank you.
District 6, thank you, Mayor. District 6 does not have a development, but at the same time, we're all up here to serve the public, serve the community. So my heart is in it just as well as everyone else. So, but also the question might be for you, Jeff, is how much time do they have? You know, we're getting now we're seeing everything in front of us in plain sight. How much time do they have to take action?
It's hard to say. The last letter said 90 days, which was about 30 days ago. Right?
Okay, so
I think that's
A
about
plan would
right.
have to come fast.
Yeah.
so
At least the beginnings of a plan, at least some action would have to come fast.
And if I can comment, you know, maybe the city's role would be to create the opportunity for the housing authority to have a plan for compliance with the HUD requirements. So kind of get between the housing authority and the HUD people, like we've been trying to do. And yeah, we have. And you know, try to get these folks some time to put this together. But it's going to depend on the housing authority coming up with something that we can take to HUD, because, you know, as time goes by, I mean, Councilman Lewis he's right. These people don't mess around. Every letter they write to you is going in the file. Every part of it is, every step is part of the case. You know, they're building a record for their action if they have to take it. So, you know, every little bit, every little time that goes by and another opportunity's missed and another deadline's missed, it makes it more difficult to change the course of this thing. So, I don't know if it's appropriate for the council to hear from some of these folks tonight, or if it's appropriate to have a meeting between the affected council people and the mayor and representatives of the housing authority to try to put something together to approach HUD with.
One more statement. I agree about the whole committee deal, making committees to do certain things, but that's why I asked the question on time. You know, what kind of time frame are we in to get a committee together to go ahead and relay all this back to us and relay it back to the board, relay it back to the directors. So that takes a lot of time. So like you just said, that we had 60 days, 30 minus 30, so 60 days, that's not much time. That's only 2 months. So that's the only message I'm trying to put out there, that we're strapped for time, or they're strapped for time, and things need to be done. So that's all I have to say.
Yeah, I would like to be part of that, Mayor, since I'm Mayor Pro Tem. And,
Good.
you know, we talking about 50 grand a month. Whenever they take action, they take it from that fund.
Mhm.
That's 1/12 of the monies.
Yeah.
And being here as long as I have, it just seemed like we always had issues with the HUD director in the past. We have no accountability, we have no involvement, but we got a responsibility.
Mhm.
Because we do represent those people. And I think the mayor and the council districts that's involved, we should, and I think we are obligated to at least get together and come up with a plan. And if they don't like a plan, then we can't say we didn't try. But I think we do have a responsibility, even though, you know, they operate on their own.
Well, that's why we spend so much time. I mean, I feel the
Yeah,
same thing.
I mean-
Maxine's been dove into this and has been very, very involved for months. Jeff has been very involved. I've spent a ton of time because it's our citizens. I do
Yeah.
feel a responsibility as well. Our hands are tied in some ways, but in other ways, you know, that's our people. So I think we all share that you
Yeah.
know, we got to represent people who live here, and we want people to live here. And the alternative of saying, here's a voucher and you might go to Lafayette or you know,
Well,
wherever
yeah.
was not an option to me. And that's why I've been resistant to do some of the things that HUD suggested. I'll be honest with you. You know, that wasn't good for my community.
Yeah, but I would be willing to be part of that.
Good.
And
I think everybody wants to.
I don't
know how we do that, but we'll figure it out.
Committees is a good idea, but I think we need to act. I mean, I think we need to have a meeting with however we can with the director and say, you know, give us
I mean,
something. If not, we're gonna have to offer what we think we need to do, because no matter what, we become responsible of those citizens where they're gonna stay.
Mhm.
And I just,
Which is what we've been trying to do behind the scenes.
Yeah, well, yeah, I know that. I appreciate that, but I think it's time to act
Mhm.
more than time
Well,
to talk
that's
about
why it's on the agenda.
it. Thank you.
I mean, it's true, you
Yeah.
know? Okay, anybody else? I need to go back to, just like that.
I just wanted to know, I see that, Councilmember Lewis and Guidry were at a meeting with the mayor and evidently some of the board members and all, and then that was on the 22nd of May, and then there was another one on the 29th, right?
Conference call
Conference call.
with HUD.
So did anything happen in those two meetings that?
Nothing was reported back. You know, behind the scenes, as my mayor pro tem was saying, I was trying to facilitate a plan behind the scenes. Why don't you get a playmaker? Why don't you do this? This is what I think, you know, from my personal opinion, just as a citizen, as the mayor, and just as somebody who cares, do this, do that, do this. Why don't you try that? But that was suggestions. I don't know. I haven't got a report back on what happened. And then HUD, I mean, I put my cards on the table. HUD realized I was doing this, that we were putting this on the agenda. So the last call came from HUD because they were like, wait a minute, you're putting this on the agenda. It's going to be public. It's going to be discussed. And I said, yeah, that's the next step. I haven't gotten, this is going to come to my council. This is going to affect my community. we bring everything to this council, which is why we trust each other and work so well together. So Jeff and I talked about Maxine, said put it on the agenda. Well, when HUD found out the last conference call, and they were invited. We invited them and said, we're gonna have a public discussion about this. You're welcome to come to our meeting. But that's nothing really that I know of. And maybe some action was taken. I am very curious, that over the last week or so, if any action was taken, but that I don't know. It wasn't reported back to me. And I've made a couple calls and, tried to encourage people to take some action to find that playmaker. I don't know if anything's happened.
Another question. I know some of us and you have been working on this. How much has the board been involved in what the smaller group was doing?
I
'Cause they
can't-
need to be an integral part of it, because they have the power to do what they need to do. So they have to, they're stakeholders, big stakeholders in this.
Board members were invited to come to the meeting.
No, like mandatory that they come.
Well,
'Cause
they
this
were.
is a do or die.
Yeah,
I
well,
mean,
they were,
that's just
I
the
can't
bottom line.
mandate, I'm only the mayor. They were invited to come to the meeting when HUD was here to try to put together some communication. They were invited to that. They were invited to a meeting just a week ago that Marlon Cherry attended, that Reverend Sophus came, and he brought Reverend Mitchell. But some board members, I think, were invited to come to that meeting. They've known we've been talking, because actually the very first meeting, Maxine, Jeff, and I went to HUD, went to one of their board meetings. So from the beginning, they've known that we were injecting ourselves in the middle and trying to communicate and trying to say, hey, let's get everybody together and get something going and get some communication, some paperwork flow, and from the beginning. So they've known what we were trying to do.
But it hasn't
I
been.
didn't mandate, I can't mandate anything, but like I
No, but
said,
it hasn't been really part of their agenda to have a joint meeting and actually do this plan and all, which needs to happen.
yeah, I don't know that. That's one of the things that, when I call her Ms. Guidry, she's gonna ask. I don't know. We don't know what they've done in the last few weeks.
That's an issue too, because we don't know what they did,
Yes, ma'am.
and we need
Well,
to know what they
that's-
did, or what are
that's-
they gonna do?
That's why we're here tonight and kind of trying to shed as much light on this to try to, all the way around, everywhere you look, there needs to be more communication, everywhere you look. So I understand.
I really think that, some of the board members, and I don't have to be included, Dan can take my spot, but,
I don't have to take your spot, I just,
because that would be my spot, because, it can only be three
oh,
of
well, I don't
us.
have to go.
Yeah, look, and I see the attorney,
Y'all
3.
could do 3, and then the mayor can meet with Dan separately.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
fine.
but you're not supposed to do a roll-in, isn't that true?
Yeah, that's a rolling quorum.
That's a rolling quorum. You're not really supposed to do
See,
that.
that's the issue.
We've never
So
done
I'm
that.
not doing
understand
nothing
that.
illegal,
Yeah,
go
I'm
ahead.
no. I'm not going
I'm
to
too
jail.
old to go to jail.
Yeah, me too. So, but you can't do that. You can't do 3 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon on the same subject. You can't do that.
Well,
I do listen to my city attorney.
okay. Now, I really think we need to get with the board president and really set up a board meeting where, of course, the board members will show up and we'll show up and just hash it all out and try to get something done, because we're talking about 139
We are.
families that will be displaced if nothing happens, and something needs to happen.
I agree.
Talking about it is not gonna fix it.
Would that be a public meeting for us if we all go? Would you have to do a joint public notification that the board was having a meeting and the council was going, so it was like a public meeting?
I don't
So
have
we
to
all could go?
Well, I mean, I think the housing authority is a public body,
advertise their meeting.
so they have to have an open meeting so the press could be there if they wanted
So if we
to.
show up in more than 3, is that okay? I think so, because it's a public meeting.
It's a scheduled meeting.
I think we'd have to give a notice,
I do
they'd
too.
have to give
I
a
think the
notice.
safe thing would, if we did do that, we'd have to give double notice, which is
Or
fine
do
with me.
or just do a committee.
That's why we have the Daily
Well,
Iberian.
yeah, but, I mean, a committee of made up of council members is another public, that's a
Right,
public
That's why I
meeting.
was thinking we might have to do both the
I think
notice.
a private meeting would get more out of it than a public meeting.
Yeah, I see
You
that
know.
just like.
All the people's business.
I know, but
It
sometimes
is.
you,
I mean,
it is, but
Yeah, whatever.
Man,
Yes, sir.
We failing to realize this is already public knowledge and public record. It just hadn't been, nobody just went ask for it. It's already
No,
public.
it is. It is. We just have to act as a public body.
No, I understand that, but, and Ms. Ledbetter asked the question, and the answer was, it was told us that they were gonna try to get the board together to meet and report back to us what they met on. And you haven't heard anything yet, right?
No, they were going to schedule a meeting, but I haven't heard back on
So, I
anything.
mean, time ticking, time ticking.
Yes, sir.
It's, I mean,
Book it.
time ticking.
Okay.
So, and you're right, we can't make them meet, but they're supposed to be meeting though.
Mhm.
So we shouldn't have to make them meet. They're supposed to be meeting.
We
And
show up at
especially
their
with
meeting.
issues like this, they should supposed to be meeting.
They can even call a special meeting to address this issue whenever.
Well, I think they have one tomorrow at the Slyman. They've asked to utilize the Slyman, and
Right.
I said they could, so that's a meeting that is, I'm sure they advertised it and everything else, but that would, I of course said, sure. I don't know if that's still on or not. Okay, well,
What time?
okay, no. Yeah. So, anybody can go to that. That was to inform their residents, and I wanted to give them a place to do it, so. Okay, Bob, you are so patient. Yes, Jeff, I'm sorry. I'm coming.
No. Why don't you listen?
Oh, I'm fine. Go ahead,
Okay.
Mr. Jeff.
No, I thought we were kind of getting toward the end. But point I want to make is, the board does not answer to us.
Correct, correct.
We have the power to remove, or the mayor has the power to remove. The council has the power to hear any kind of appeal from removal. Any new appointments have to be approved by the mayor and council. So, you know, all we got is blunt instruments here. We don't have anything that we can use to make a detailed plan. So, it's not that the board answers to us. You know, it could be that someday this council may have to replace a board and bring in outside management, you know, have that board bring in outside management, but, you know, we're not there yet. You know, maybe it's appropriate to give the board opportunity to come up with something and ask us for help in presenting that to HUD and giving them some time and some space to turn this thing around.
Which is what we've been trying to do, but which I'm always willing, my door's open, I'm always willing to do that.
Yeah, but I mean, our tools are limited,
Yeah.
and they're pretty blunt.
Okay, now I'm gonna call on the most patient council
Yes.
person tonight, Councilwoman Guidry. You have the floor again.
I'm just gonna surprise you. Everybody asks all the questions.
Okay, thank you.
I'll save the rest of my questions for another day.
Okay. Well, thank you. Is there anything further?
I have one last
Yes, ma'am.
question.
Yes, ma'am.
Jeff went, no, the board does not answer to us, but if they have a meeting and we go and ask questions, they have the option to reply or to not reply, correct?
Yeah, it's a
And
public
so
meeting.
if as a council person, I were to have a HUD development in my district and I chose to go to the meeting tomorrow and ask some questions of the board, they could choose to answer me or ignore me, correct? Okay, that's all I
And
have.
they'll run their own meeting,
Hmm?
so they
But,
could choose to call on you or not call
Yeah,
on you.
Maybe they won't call on you.
yeah, I get it, I get
That's
it.
pretty funny.
Yeah.
But I'm just putting that out there into the environment.
Is there any further discussion or anything else, anybody? I mean, this has been it's a complicated issue. I appreciate all the discussion. Is there anything else? Okay, so we're moving on. And now we're going to Councilman's remarks. I'll start with Dustin this time. Yeah, yeah. I'm giving you a break.
Thanks, Mayor. I just gotta make one comment out there. I didn't miss the last meeting just because I wanted to go on vacation or anything like that. But my wife and I welcomed the baby boy into the world, so that was exciting for us. We're still excited. So I just want to tell everyone thank you for all the help and all the prayers and all that stuff. So that's it for tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Guidry.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. Our neighborhood watch for District 5 and citywide, our gathering we have at 315 Week Street, New Iberia. It's going to be June the 20th at 6 o'clock. Our guest speaker is our Iberia Parish President, Mr. Larry Richard. Also, too, I'm excited about these cute little brochures, Miss Sandra, Miss Jane, and whomever worked all on it. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for the mini library ribbon cutting. Is going to be a little ceremony. It's going to be in the West End Park tomorrow at 10 a.m. Come out, bring your kids so they can get a free book. And I just want to put that out there just to show them how this little system works. I'm going to ask that you bring a gently used book or magazine, or I'm encouraging the kids to write their own little recipe and share it with everyone on tomorrow. So I'm excited about that. Again, West End Park, 10 a.m. Bring the kids. I know they've been playing a lot of video games since they got out of school, and mom, dad, grandmother, this is a great opportunity for them to get outdoors. Also, too, can I talk about the Light Up My Ride?
Yes, ma'am, you can.
Little
This is your
addition.
time.
It's
This
a
is
little
your time.
addition to the 4th of July parade. We don't have to drive to Erath anymore or any other surrounding area. Come on out for the 4th of July parade put on by the Iberia Parish Association, City of New Iberia, and all these great leaders that are behind this parade. It's going to give the family an opportunity to make a new tradition. And we have something that we've added to the parade called Light Up My Ride. And I'm excited about it. It's an opportunity for the children, the parents, the grandparents, the entire family to get on a bicycle and decorate it and come light up your community. See our community in another light, enjoy the 4th of July parade, learn something about our veterans that worked so hard for us, for this land to be free. So we're excited about it. You'll hear more about it as the upcoming weeks. And I just want to clear something up. The media was so generous enough to cover the little mini library, and I just watched the footage, and they said something about that I had to fight to get this done. I'm like, okay, that's not quite what I said. So I just wanted to clear that up. There's no fighting here in this administration. Just maybe fight against old mindsets and, past behaviors, maybe mediocrity in some areas, but basically just to fight to get with new innovative ideas, little small treasures we have for our community so to implement. So I'm just asking that everyone come out on tomorrow. Remember, we want to continue to work together, to flow together, and to love our city together. Happy early Father's Day to all the fathers. Thank you.
Thank you. Peter.
I just want to thank everybody who came out to our annual symposium. We had some great panelists. If you missed it, you missed a treat. We had great fellowship thereafter too. And hopefully, if you haven't made one of the symposiums, next year in May, 4th Thursday, I'll probably be on again with some new panelists. We will have Neighborhood Watch in June for District 4, and it'll be on the 3rd Thursday. And pretty much I want to thank also the sponsors for that activity, because of course Neighborhood Watch couldn't do it alone. Smile Community Action Agency helped, New Iberia chapter, Delta Sigma Theta, and also the Iberia Parish chapter of the NAACP. So thanks to them, and thanks to our panelists for being willing to come and take heat sometimes. But it was really nice. Good comments, good questions. People answered them, and I think they felt real satisfied about the answers. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Sherry flagged me down. She had one more thing. Go ahead.
No, but I'm gonna.
No,
just-
go ahead.
Yeah, no.
Well, ladies
Go ahead,
first.
sir.
Go ahead.
Ladies first. Knock it out.
Go ahead, knock it out.
Y'all got it. I'm good. Y'all go ahead.
sure?
Yeah, I'm positive.
All right.
I want to do it in order.
Okay. Dan?
People need to be careful of the citizens. School's out. We got a lot of children, kids riding bikes, and A lot of them playing basketball in the street. So just be careful about that. And I think our message to the community is working out. If you look to see our sales tax was up in June, and for the year, we up a little better than we projected. So I mean, people are shopping local and staying and spending their money in town, and at the end of the day, they're gonna see what they can get in return. We'll be giving so much back to the community. So I wanna thank them for that. Thank you, that's it.
Thank you. Mr. Broussard.
Sherry, it's nice to see new ideas. And other cities have put on this library thing. Close to my district, I'm encouraging a few people to step over and enjoy your new library that you're getting going tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock. We had a very, very good crowd at Memorial Day, one of the largest. It was good to see that. Represent all our soldiers and everybody, so we're glad to see. I mean, they didn't have a seat to be found, so we're glad to see everybody support that good group.
Thank you. Well,
Well, Western Park Camp with partnership with our Western Neighborhood Association is going on right now, and if you're not already registered, I think it may be a little too late. I don't know if Heather's here. A little too late to register, but
It's full, but they have a wait.
it's full. But they do have a waiting list, so get on the waiting list. That's all I have tonight.
thank you. Ellen?
I recently found out that you can rent the pool. Dan, I'm gonna get you back. Anyway, I recently found out, I didn't know this, that you can rent the pool at City Park for a birthday party or just to have some friends together. You can rent half the pool or the whole pool, and I was unaware of that. So I just want to put that out there for the citizens, if they don't know that, that's definitely something to look into. Get some friends, put some money together, and go have some time at the pool by yourself. I think that's cool, So, so I just wanted to put that out there. You can rent the pool at the park.
Cool. Okay. That's it. Back to Councilwoman Guidry. You had one more thing?
Oh, absolutely.
All right.
I failed to mention Mr. Fred Wesley, Miss Phoebe Hayes, Iberia. I think is it the Iberia Veterans Association?
Yes.
Okay, and I think other organizations, nonprofits, they were so kind enough to clean up the graves on the north side, which is my district, mark the graves of African American soldiers that I think they were unmarked graves, and I think some of them were in deplorable condition. So, whether we want to honor all our vets, but I just thought it was a very kind act that you all did that, and I was excited about learning about the little table at the Slyman Theater for the program. I think we had a few teary eyes in the building about what all that meant. Really touched my heart concerning that. I think that was it, and I just wanted to thank them for what they did. Very nice. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. All I have, the next meeting is June 18th. We still have properties on Civic Source for sale if we have any developers that are interested, and I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Thank you all.